Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this post-Thanksgiving Friday. I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Like I said, I hope your bellies are full and you're laid back and getting to watch a bunch of sports today. We are going to be busy and at it. And right after we get done here, we've got to get going. Indiana plays basketball today again as they are taking on Jackson State. And it just doesn't stop because coming up on Wednesday, the biggie, North Carolina comes to town. Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com joins me now. First of all, let's get caught up on recruiting. A lot of visitors coming in this weekend, Alec. It's a busy Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. They had a couple 2025 and 2026 kids coming on Wednesday for the Little Rock game, but the big day for Indiana is Friday today here, where you have EJ Walker, 2025, who's already visited for Hoosier Hysteria. He's from Lloyd Memorial out in Kentucky. You have Bryce Heard from Montverde. So those are kind of the two big ones, both 2025, and then Xavier Robinson from Lawrence North as well. All three 2025 kids. Indiana involved with all three up to this point. Definitely a big weekend for them. All three unofficial since they are still in the 2025 class. But you're starting to gain a little bit more momentum with some of those 25 recruits outside of the two big ones, obviously, and Jalen Harrelson and Trent Sicily. So big day for them. Walker's obviously this is his second visit, the first for the other two. But it's also notable, obviously, with Bryce Heard, top 20 guard out of the class, and he's taken notice what Jalen Hood-Schifino and Malik Renault are doing to start the season here. Obviously, both freshmen, both from Montverde, not teammates of Bryce Heard last year, but he understands one, how prepared they were, but two, the impact that both of them are having early on here, as we sit a couple games into the season, the impact that both of those guys are having for Indiana, and he's noticed that, and that's something that obviously sticks out right away when it comes to whether it be early playing time, whether it comes to relationships that can be built. And so that's a significant one. Guy who is going to be wanted by numerous top programs around the country, ranked in the top 16 there, number 16 overall in the class, and will surely end up being probably right around that when the rankings eventually get settled here in a couple years. But one of the top players in the country, and obviously it's another momentum building weekend for Indiana, who continues to bring in top 4-stars and 5-star talent almost every single weekend through this point.
Yeah, and it just looks really good for the future. You look at what's going on now, and that success is going to continue throughout this season. Next season, we don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of changes. We do know that. It's like there's going to be I don't want to say there's going to be a dip. We just don't know what's going to happen in 24 because the 24 class is not that strong in Indiana. For one thing, and Indiana's going to have to go out and kind of fill some holes. We don't know who's going to leave yet, to be honest with you. So that's going to be an ongoing problem, actually, when you go forward, because you never know who's going to have a great season or whatever the case may be. But the fact that Indiana is continuously and constantly getting these types of recruits to come visit is nothing but a positive thing. It shows how Indiana is back on the map. And for people that are a little hung up that they haven't landed a bunch of guys for 24, man, I don't see any concern. There's not a program that's having this kind of success that's going to have problems getting people to come here, especially guys out of the portal. And I think that's something that for this next season that Mike Woodson is not concerned about because of that. He knows that there's going to be people that want to come to Indiana as badly as Indiana wants them. So that little dip there, as you talk about these guys for 25, but man, oh man, that 25 class, that could end up being a top 3 class in the country. Definitely a top 5 if you look at the guys that they're recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely. And, 2024, that's going to be, I think, even more significant than, everyone wants to talk about the 2023 class, the incoming class, right, with Gabe Cupps and Ja'Kai Newton. And obviously, those are the only two players signed for right now. That's going to change with the transfer portal. If not one, at least, two guys. One of those two numbers will join. But when you look at the 2024 class, there's still a lot of question marks, right? Indiana's super heavily involved with numerous 5 stars, numerous top 50 guys in the country. So that's going to be a very good class, regardless of who joins them. But it's a very significant one because there's a lot of questions about what this roster is going to look like. Obviously, if Jalen Hood-Schifino stays for 2 years, which could still happen, right? He could be.
I'm starting to think
that
that he does. I'm starting to think that he's a 2-year guy.
Yeah, and so when you look at both him and Malik Renew, those are two guys who you don't at least expect to stay 3 years, right? So those are two key pieces that you're going to have potentially next year who are going to play significant roles. Obviously, you lose everyone from this current starting lineup in 2 years, most likely, regardless. Assuming Jalen Hood-Schifino goes, you have the potential to lose all five going into next year. So you need to replace potentially the top 6 players on this roster going into that 2024 season. And that's something that, not a lot of teams typically have to deal with year after year. You get the Kentuckys, you get the Dukes, but outside of that, I mean, that's a significant jump that you have to make, especially in a recruiting class. And that's why you see Mike Woodson and this staff prioritizing only top 50 talent for the most part in this class, because he knows that in order to continue any sort of momentum, most likely they'll be able to do that next year. But then again, you look at that uncertainty with the roster and especially key players. You don't know what you're going to have. And obviously not a lot of programs know what you're going to have 2 years from now, but specifically for Indiana, that's a tall task that they're going to have to try to replicate and get, whether that is through the recruiting class that they bring in or the transfer portal. But then when you look into 2025, right, I mean, whatever you get in 2025 is just going to be added gravy to what they're going to bring in the next 2 years. And that's star talent with potentially Trent Sicily, Jalen Harrelson, and potentially any of these other guys that right, they're bringing in Bryce Heard, EJ Walker, a lot of these guys whose recruitments are still obviously getting going a couple years out. But the success that Indiana's had with both classes up to this point is pretty significant. And getting Gabe Cupps and Ja'Kai Newton very early on in the 2023 cycle really helped them kind of jumpstart future recruitments. And that's what they ended up doing, right? It may hurt them a little bit in the 2023 class in terms of getting a large class. But when you look at the future, that's pretty significant. The fact that, they've had numerous top 10 players on campus already for official visits, not just for unofficial, right? I don't know the last time Indiana has had this many top 10, this many top 20, top 25 players on campus almost every single weekend for months.
It's never happened, honestly, because when Bob Knight was here, he just went after the guys that he wanted and pretty much got those guys, and that was it. But yeah, this has never happened to this level.
Yeah, exactly. And so the talent's going to be there for Indiana. It's obviously just about closing those guys and being able to, take the pick of really who they want. But yeah, that 2024 class, I think, is extremely important to continue the success that they're obviously going to have this year and what you would assume carry over into next year with at least some of those pieces that are coming back. So regardless of kind of what happens in 2023 and in 2025, I think the more important class there is 2024 and getting 3 to 4 really key players who can at least have 2 of those guys come in and play immediately. And that's what you're seeing with Mike Woodson and this staff, prioritizing guys who are playing national level competition every single game and guys who are going to be ready to at least play some sort of role as a freshman, whatever year that may be.
Yeah, because you look at a guy like Bryce Heard, say that they're able to land him, and when he's a freshman, well, that's going to be, I believe, CJ Gunn's junior year, and he is going to be most likely pretty well developed by then, because we can see how hard he's working right now. I can see the advances he's making on his defense. He's got the offense. I don't see that as being a problem as coming together. 2 years from now, he's going to be a really good player. But the days of keeping and developing your main guys, that's been cut in half, I'd say, at the minimum. Guys like CJ Gunn, who I think will be a really good player for Indiana and will be here for 3-4 years maybe. He's going to be the rarity. He's a tweener. He just needs enough development to where he needs to stay, but he's talented enough to where he can play right now and does. So he's going to be one of the unique ones. Caleb Banks is another one that showed great talent. So when those guys are juniors and these guys are coming in, and then you think of people like Trent Sisley and Jalen Harrelson, Indiana could just be setting itself up right now to become a juggernaut, which is what the fans have wanted to see. That's why, exactly like you said, I agree that Mike Woodson is only bringing this type of talent in, because that's what you have to be an elite team.
Yeah, and obviously it's only a couple games here this season, and it's only been, against one significant opponent in Xavier. We'll obviously, be able to see what these players will do starting next week against Carolina and moving forward pretty quickly. But the style that Mike Woodson wants to play is not something that you can have with slower, shorter, stockier player. You need long, athletic, quick players, and that's what he's prioritized. And that's why you've obviously seen the shift in top 100, top 150 kids to making a huge priority on top 50, top 25 kids, guys who tend to be obviously more athletic, more bigger, smarter, just more able to come in and play immediately and produce immediately. And that's what Mike Woodson obviously needs with the style of play that he wants. And that's what you're seeing in the recruiting. And I think the way this 2022 class was set up is what you're going to see moving forward with especially Indiana and who they're going after. Half of the class is probably going to be 2-year players at a most, and then the other half of the class is going to be 3-4-year players. And that's really how you build a consistent program, is not bringing in one and dones every single year. You need 1 or 2 of those in your class, but you need to have that backbone of guys who know the system, guys who developed in the system, and then are upperclassmen when you bring in that talented group of freshmen. Look how this team is built, right? You have experience all across the board, guys who have now at least played 2 years or a year and a half, right, under Mike Woodson, and you bring in four players in this class, 2 who are most likely 2 and dones, and 2 who are probably 3-4-year players, and you're getting an impact from all 4 of them. But that talent level and that one and done potential talent level is what Indiana's missed so much, and you can't wait 4 years anymore to develop that talent. That's something that you were able to do 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. But now you're seeing a lot more of these programs, the top ones, putting together classes where you have guys that stick around for 3 years and you have that one and done talent in there. And that's how they're able to build that consistent powerhouse of top 15 team after top 15 team every single season.
Yeah, and seeing Mike Woodson get CJ Gunn in the game as often as he can, see him getting in Caleb Banks as he did the other night, trying to get them minutes. He's trying to get them ready because he knows they're probably not going to get minutes maybe as the season goes on. Who knows? But maybe he will need them and they will get minutes. So he's trying to prepare them as this season does go forward. Back to Bryce Heard. What he's a shooting guard, obviously. And like I said, if he comes in, in that 25 class, that's going to be Indiana can always use shooting. Shooting has been an issue. So shooting guard coming in, that would be very good for Indiana, especially if you add someone else that can just consistently knock down perimeter shots. And he is someone that does a good job of that.
Yeah, he's a very, very athletic guard. He's 6'5", built very nicely as a sophomore right now. Now he's going to get 3 years down at Montverde to be able to build that body. A lot of players.
Think about that. 3 years at Montverde.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of players you've seen it more with this team this season that they have, but realistically, right? I mean, he's not going to play a whole lot this year because they have loaded talent and even more talent, I think, this year than they have had in the past in terms of from freshmen to seniors on that roster. But going up against them every single day, and that's why so many of these guys transfer there now freshman, sophomore years, because even if they don't play that much in when they do, right, it's not for extended minutes. They're going up against guys like Jalen Hood-Schifino, like Malik Renew, like Derek Whitehead at Duke, like any of these other players who are now either significant parts of Power 5 national championship type caliber expectations for teams, or in the NBA. And you don't get that anywhere else unless you're going to some of these national kind of powerhouse programs at the high school level. So for him, right, super athletic guard can kind of hone in on all of his skills every single day going up against all this talent. But for him, I mean, he's a good shooter, but he's best in the open floor. He's best getting downhill. He's that kind of crazy athletic wing who can play on both ends of the floor, and that's what Mike Woodson has obviously been going after. Guy who can play both on and off of the ball, and that's what you need. Multiple ball handlers now, and we're getting to the point where it's obviously not just one ball handler that you need on the floor. It's getting to the point now where you almost need three, right? You need a wing who, whether or not he's a true guard, you need a wing who can handle the ball and be that third ball handler on the floor, regardless of kind of who else you have on the lineup. And so if you're going after multiple 6'5" guys, right, those are so interchangeable. And you've seen that now with the last couple guards, Jalen Hood-Schifino, 6'5", Ja'Kai Newton, 6'4", 6'5", CJ Gunn, 6'5". So you're getting into that aspect of these guys can now play 1, 2, or 3 on the floor, be that primary ball handler at times if need be, and also be second, third ball handler and play more off the ball. But the more playmakers you have with the ball, the better you're going to be, and the more it opens up that entire offense. And that's exactly what you would get with Bryce Heard, a guy who doesn't always need the ball in his hands, but an extremely talented player with the ball in his hands getting to the basket.
Yeah, the thing that just stands out to me, that he's going to get 3 years down at Montverde. That's just it's like going to Johns Hopkins if you want to be a doctor. In essence, that's the same thing. So, what's Liam McNeely? Is he a junior down there? All right, so
yep, Derek Queen, Asa Newell. Obviously, Asa and Liam McNeely transferred in this year, so they'll get 2 years. Derek Queen's been there. This is his second year with the program, so obviously he would have had 3 years by the time he graduates as well.
Is he a senior there since his last year?
Still a junior.
He's still holy. Oh God, they're going to be loaded again. That'll be fun to watch. Besides Bryce Heard coming in, you've got EJ Walker, a kid from Kentucky, another kid from Kentucky, I might add. Now, have they offered him yet?
They have not offered him yet. I would not be shocked if that happens, obviously, here in the near future.
He would be like the 7th kid from Kentucky to receive an offer from Mike Woodson. That's at least 5 more than I can think of in the last 40 years, probably. And just shows you that the staff, again, they seek it out no matter what. EJ Walker, he seems like, and is visiting Indiana, so definitely interest on his part.
Yeah, and for the second time, right? This is his second visit since basically the season kind of got started there. He was in Bloomington for Hoosier Hysteria. Back again, he was actually Xavier's another program recruiting him. He was actually at the Xavier Indiana game as well last week. So he's been able to see now Indiana kind of front and center a few times, obviously here for the Jackson State game later today. And then would not be shocked again if he makes that short trip back up to Bloomington at least one or two other times this year. I mean, he's very interested in Indiana. Obviously, Indiana is very interested in him to bring him back again. We'll see when that offer does come. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes sooner rather than later, right? And really go 2 feet into that recruitment because again, very very talented kid, 6'7", 220, able to play both on the perimeter and obviously at this stage with his size, play a little bit in the inside of 15 feet as well. But one of those bigger athletic wings that you can never take enough of, and one of those guys who again is going to continue to develop, but already doing a very very nice job with that development. Just obviously 2.5 years into his high school career.
Yeah, 6'7" kid and just 225 though. That stands out. He's 6'7", 225. He's got some bulk to him. He's not a rail. So you like to see that. It means he's got some muscle on him. But yeah, watching his highlights, he can shoot the three as well as drive in, kind of like a more a little more athletic Miller Kopp, I guess, is a description. Who else is? I know Purdue is looking at him. West Virginia.
Yep.
He's from Erlanger, which is right by Cincinnati. Erlanger, Kentucky, up near Cincinnati.
Yep. Yeah. No. I mean, he has a lot of Big Ten programs looking at him right now as an offer from Minnesota too. So I mean, Purdue's obviously looking at him. Xavier, very heavily involved with that. Ohio State, another school involved there. Louisville's involved. He's taken a couple unofficial visits to Purdue, Louisville, West Virginia, and obviously Xavier at this point. Dayton, another program, obviously getting a lot of the Big Ten and Midwestern schools at this point. Outside of that, wouldn't be shocked to see some Big 12 teams eventually. Cincinnati's right there. Wouldn't be shocked to see Cincinnati get a little bit more involved. Obviously going to the Big 12, but Indiana's been in to see him a few other times, just for workouts for open gyms outside of the visits that he's been on. So you can clearly tell the involvement that Indiana has at the moment. Brian Walsh leading the charge there. So this is one where Indiana's still getting ahead of the ball with the recruitment, even though they haven't officially offered.
And you mentioned Xavier Robinson. Is that right?
Yeah, Xavier Washington. From Lawrence North. Robinson.
Yeah.
2025 guard.
Todd Leary says if they're from Lawrence North, they can all shoot, man. Of course, Todd Leary's a Lawrence North graduate.
Yep. Robinson's still obviously getting used to the high school game there, still in the 2025 class. But the Lawrence North program obviously has taken a huge hit in terms of skill level on that team that has now departed over the last couple of seasons.
You lost CJ Gunn, baby. Omar Cooper, many others, right?
Yeah, exactly. Who are now playing, big time basketball, but 6'1", has some really good athleticism to him, a good length as well for a kind of ball dominant point guard at the moment. Athletic, can get into the paint, really good finisher around the rim. It'll be interesting to see, what he does now moving forward in the next couple of years. Looking to be kind of the go-to player for that Lawrence North program, and really taking on a lot of that responsibility at an early age, an early kind of grade level as that sophomore, and being that go-to guy. So Indiana's been in to see him a few times as well. Brian Walsh heavily involved with that one too. So yeah, Xavier Robinson, definitely a guy to continue to follow. I wouldn't expect any sort of offer coming here, with this visitor in the near future, but definitely one where you're going to hear his name a lot. Obviously, being right in the background there, just a little bit away from Bloomington.
Now he's played. Is he what year is he? He's sophomore.
Yeah, class of 2025 sophomore. Yep.
Yeah. So he would have probably not. Did he play him? Probably didn't play much, if any at all, last year with the talent that was in front of him the last couple of
Yeah,
seasons.
and Lawrence North obviously didn't. They've never played a deep bench. They tend to stick with their 5, 6 guys that they roll with. So he was one of those seventh, eighth players who would still get some minutes in the game, more spot minutes. Showed some good things. He had a really productive summer this past year. So this is a big year for him. I think recruitment wise, just to be able to get out there, especially for Lawrence North, and being one of those go-to players, and really see how he handles all that and develops his all-around game.